Right. We can get seated in the same order. Right. All right. We have the last session for the day, and it's about to be lunchtime, so I know everybody is going to be in a hurry. But these are very interesting and very knowledgeable speakers, so I'll expect a bit more patience, and you would probably enjoy this panel quite a lot. My colleague Eva has already done the job of introducing our panelists, so I'll get straight into the action and begin with the questions. So my first question is to you, Mr. Tapani. I think it's working. Yeah.
Right, now it's...
Right, so how does your business contribute to circularity? And a bit about your business as well.
Right, yes, that's a valid question. So we are environmental technology company based in Finland, designing, building, assembling our mobile machinery in Finland, and then delivering them around the world. And basically our machinery enables the different material stream separation. Basically, simple idea is that we are able to collect valuables. Earlier in the morning we were discussing about the system and processes here in India where the pickers are basically picking the valuables. So now with this our technology, we are taking valuables out just before the rest of the material ends up to the landfill. So basically we are picking up the ferrous metal and non-ferrous metal. Even further on we can pick cold silver spoons, what we are throwing time to time to the waste. So that's basically the secret sauce behind the machinery.
Great. So there's a lot of scope for your machineries in India. And Mr. Shridhar, my next question to you is the same question. How are you contributing to business circularity?
Yeah, we look at it in another perspective. The other perspective is that how do we reduce the amount of waste? If you are able to reduce the amount of waste, then we are contributing in a certain way to circularity as well. So precast reduces the amount of resources that is used in terms of reducing the amount of concrete. It is reducing the amount of steel required in the buildings.
Could you actually give a short brief about your business also to the audience?
Sure. I think the audience might not know. So the other way, when I was listening to everybody about circularity, I think India had a lot of past history about circularity as we were talking about. Then the goalpost was that how do we become rich?
Yeah.
Correct? When we became rich, we started consuming more, and that was the goalpost. So now again the goalpost has changed. Hey, give us some time so that we see where the goalpost is now. Now again we are back into circularity, so it is going to take a little bit more time, right? So I mean that's what I fundamentally feel. Earlier we had a little bit of poverty, and then circularity was inbuilt, because poverty brings in how to, the mentality how to use things, and then later when you become richer and when you want to consume. So I had once heard that a person who is cycling is the most useless person for a society. Is it so? It's
Why?
not.
Yeah.
So that is the question we need to answer anyway. So coming back to my subject, on a serious note, we are into precast technology. We set up factories which manufacture buildings at the back end on a factory environment. So we could say it is the manufacturing of civil engineering. We make all the 5 structural elements in a factory, that is slabs, column, beams, walls and staircase, depending on the scale. And then we bring it to the site, fix it like a Lego, of course with the proper design codes and measures. Where does sustainability come in this kind of arrangement is that our factories are normally situated near the resource center, closer to the resources, and then we supply from the factory, the elements go to all the sites and get erected as buildings. So lot less pollution, lot less wastage of the basic raw materials like steel, aggregates, concrete. And then also you also reduce the amount of labor by doing mechanization. Not to tell that we are cutting employment, but basically, if you want to do projects in mass scale, you will not be able to do it without having technology intervention, right? And today, India is all about growth and growing faster. Timelines are short. We cannot do it with the manual process that is already in place. So technology becomes an intervention that is required, and that is how it is getting progressing now. So how do we contribute to circularity is that when we produce slabs, we have a technology that reduces the amount of reinforcement that is required in the slab. So we get a longer span, that means the amount of concrete that is used in terms of structural elements comes down. Overall, the cost of construction comes down. It contributes because there is no emission of carbon from the factory. It's a green factory which comes up. Second, we can also embed carbon more easily, and lesser steel used means that the consumption of carbon itself is reduced. You can see that we have a huge traffic problem. So if there is a traffic problem, lot of truck mixers are waiting in the signal. You are producing a lot of pollution without getting anything out of it. So if I look at all of those, we are only transporting these elements in the night when the traffic is not there. So I mean, in that way, if you look at it, it's a huge sustainability measure that we are implementing in this particular technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shridhar. Right, Dr. Deshpande, my question to you is a very simple question, but I know the answer won't be very simple. How does circularity fit in MMRDA's future plans?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks. My colleague tried to explain their perspective on how they are trying to do circularity in their business areas. And the question asked to me actually talks about MMRDA's main anchor focus about sustainability and circularity. And I'm glad that I'm a speaker just before the lunch because the Honorable Chief Secretary and Honorable Metropolitan Commissioner put a right perspective for what the state is doing, what are the national ambitions, and how MMRDA is fitting into that. So I actually got the clues from what they have talked. If you just see some examples of circularity, what MMRDA is trying to achieve, the huge impetus of 337 kilometers of metro network. And this just answers what you cite is we start with reduction. And when we're using public transport at a scale, and when we say that Mumbai typically is a public transport city, when about 60 to 65% of our first and last mile along with the core mile is by public transport, you are actually reducing the emissions on the road. You are actually consuming less fuel. And thereby you are contributing to one factor of circularity is start with reduction of use of resources. And what actually Mr. Kaustup said was very right. We don't look circularity as a waste problem. We look as a resource problem. And Honorable CG also touched upon about, and the Honorable Chief Secretary touched about, how do we recircle all the materials required and consume. Now, if I give some statistics of India, 35 to 40% of the people urbanized. And globally, we know as the ambition of, as you rightly told, is from when we embark this Amrut Kal for the next 25 years. And India wants to become a $30 trillion economy. And Maharashtra towards $5 trillion economy and Mumbai metropolitan region to $1.5 trillion economy. When these aspirations of economic growth are coupled with consumables, then I think the circular issue comes in a mainstream, very central to what we are doing. And it actually talks about way of life. Now, somebody who is in the room and you should tell him that he is aspirant, young, growing and consume less, perhaps it is mellowing down on his aspirational. However, our demographic dividend is 28 and about 80 crore people will be in the age of 28 to 40, which will be growing. They will be contributing to the economic growth of the country. Also, they also have to achieve the net zero targets. So when we are trying to achieve sustainable development goal targets, when we are trying to see that the energy footprint is less, when we are trying to see that the carbon footprint per capita is less, circularity actually touches and becomes the main central theme of all these areas. If you see all the MMRDA projects, we talk about rebooting, we talk about reshaping, and we talk about Mumbai in minutes. If you see these three pillars, and how they are so closely linked with circularity and sustainability, I'll just emphasize. If you are traveling less, you're consuming less. So we're talking about last mile and first mile and 15-minute cities globally, but in Mumbai you will find it's happening. Then we are also talking about a resource consumption. When we are using only fuel as a public transport, which I gave example, let's go on water. We have the policies which are about circularity of the water, and Honorable Chief Secretary also rightly said that water we use vaporizes and becomes the rain. Now, if the carbon emissions is less and the heat island effect which you're all facing is less, actually we may in somehow attack the problem of climate change mitigation, climate change resilience building up, and climate change adaptation. So actually what we try to do in circularity helps achieve us in sustainability and also achieves us to also mitigate and build the resilience around the climate change extreme events also possible. Now, if you asked about any of the MMRDA projects which we are doing about having two different cities, we are having Mumbai 3, which you know at the Atal Setu lands, we are having a 324 square kilometer city. In Palghar, we are talking about Mumbai 4, we are having that city. Now, all of these cities will have a less energy consumption by design, by building design, by architectural control, by seeing that the heat which these buildings and concretes are generating in the cities are not, perhaps the redevelopment which was talked in the morning, all of this or the concrete which is being used, can we use recycled materials? Can we use this? Because naturally, I think some of the statistics are showing that when the cities are consuming about 60% of the resources, only 7% or 6 to 7% UNEP reports say are recycled. Can we increase that percentage? Can we make it mainstreaming use of recycled material? Perhaps what you say is good materials used less is equally important. Perhaps recycle, because redevelopment is happening on huge ways. Perhaps because construction and demolition waste, so solid waste, water cycle recycling, wastewater uses, industrial waste, the steel, the car waste, all of this waste which city is generating, and from 1 kilogram per person per day, when we are having economic growth, if we reach the natural trajectories which are globally happening, about 2.5 to 3 with a huge population, it's going to be a huge target. That's why Mr. Kaustubh Dause in the morning said that we are going to have circular parks around the municipal corporation. And I was also instrumental in some of the setting up of the circular parks which are coming up, finding the land and trying to do that. I was also instrumental in handling this solid waste management at a level of a regional level. It's not municipal level, because sometimes the economies of scale don't match for setting up a plant for a municipal level. Now, even if you see waste management total process, we are talking about life cycle cost. And we are also trying to see where is the value which is coming out of this waste, which can be captured and used as a profit proposition by the private sector. And if the equity of the private sector is equal to what government sector is doing by allotting a land, then we solve the problem. That's why we are trying to see that sustainability and circularity are the central of all things what MMRDA is doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the detailed and lovely response. We'll open the floor for questions. We'll have 2 questions. So, audience.
Unless you tell that lunch is given, if you ask questions, they won't ask questions. So you're standing between lunch and questions, yeah.
We've got great speakers.
Yeah. I think my friend from Alto has a question, yeah.
Please. Can somebody pass a mic?
Yeah, I think actually I have a repeat of the previous question, but aimed at maybe MMRDA. So similarly, just like Finland has this organization Sitra, which is handling the difficult task of doing innovation thinking and design thinking, which MMRDA and these organizations have the experience to do, but they're firefighting every day, you know. So that agency that requires that kind of expertise, is there any move in that direction to build that kind of a agency kind of thing? That was the question.
In just in simple terms, is MMRDA thinking about circular economy or not? And if they are, then are there people who are specifically thinking about circular economy in their plans?
We are not only thinking, we are implementing it, we are part of it, we are part of that circle already, and it's not today. Whatever projects which MMRDA has been doing across the time, we have been part of it. We started with very conservatively with reduce, recycle, those philosophies, to now trying to be at a design stage, implement the objectives of that. If you're talking about institutionalization of that, yes, we certainly have a separate solid waste management department for waste management. Every municipal corporation has. We have, I think you will be surprised to know that the state government has just signed an MOU for making Mumbai metropolitan region as the first circular economic region. We are going to talk about air, we are going to talk about water, and we are going to talk about all the greenscapes which is happening here. So when we're talking about blue and green infrastructure, when we're talking about grey infrastructure, and when we're talking about digital infrastructure, circularity and sustainability are at the core of that. Separately, as the time evolves, we'll have different people, we'll have different skill sets, but let me tell you, as Metropolitan Commissioner in the morning, Honorable said that, we are having global engagements. And this is the workshop which allows us to speak with the global engagements. We are already having few global engagements across the education and the thought process. We are working with University of Berkeley, we are working with TU Delft, we are working with TU Munich, we are working with Alan Turing Institution. And once we start University of Birmingham and Crossrail, and circularity is part of the discussions, part of the dialogue, part of the workshops. We are trying to build it. We are trying to also build the skill sets. We are doing reskilling, we are doing upskilling around this area. And actually, with all the architects which we are using from design stage, we are getting involved on the dashboard to see that this building life cycle will have less energy consumption. When we are doing it a design cycle, we are actually answering the circularity because we are consuming less. It starts with that. And then how do we recycle the entire process? That's all actually from the selection of materials, from the design stage. Circularity is the main focus and impact of what MMRDA is doing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, panelist. Myself, Satyendra Upadhyay from the Somaiya Vidya Vihar University here. And I work on the circular economy transition for MSMEs. So I have two questions. One for the Tapani. In Finland, how do you work with your supply chain, making sure they are, first question is like, up to what % they are fully circular, the supply chain, SMEs about that? And second, how do you make sure they follow that? Reason behind, because in India the scale is different. We have huge million of the SMEs are there, and priority is different. They have the resource constraints and the financial limitations are there. So those are the challenge are there. One question for you, one question for Dr. Shankar. As you mentioned, I think it's very good initiative to see a circular economy park. But what we are also discussing at in education level, how do we make our young generation more ready for those advanced infrastructure in the future, which is going to come in Mumbai? And especially becoming individual responsibility towards the circularity. I don't know how to achieve that. Not sure whether index can help it out, but a kind of individual sustainability index kind of things. Do you think is there some discussion is going on, or there is and you are working with a couple of institutions like TU Munich and all those, is that some moving in that direction? Thank you.
Yes, I can start at the answering. Bottom line, how I can see it, and that's question is, I have had that in many countries. So first of all, it's education, and that needs to be in place. And secondly, we need to have a regulation by the government. So that's definitely needed to get the separation started. That the waste wouldn't end up to landfill as it is today in many countries. But we need to have proper education what comes to the schools, and then then going from there. That's the bottom line. And then we need the government help for the regulations, and then comes all the municipal activities around that. And then EPR, we were discussing that's a good activity. That's definitely needed. We have a good stories about EPRs. What comes to the, for example, used tire recycling. We are recycling in Finland 99.9 the percent of the used tires, and there's certain fee once we replace the motorcycle tires, passenger car tires, we need to pay once we do the replacement. But that's a full circle how we do it, and we've been doing that probably 20 years, and it's definitely working. So those are the fundamentals.
Thank you very much. I think circularity has a very relevant geographical context. Now, when you're looking circularity from a European point of view, if you're talking about the Nordic countries, or if you're talking about countries like Denmark, when I visited some of the plants there, the education, when I went to a waste to energy plant, and they took you to a room where you have to see the incineration phenomena happening. And there's a small window which is kept at your knee level. And there's a small window which is kept at an height level. So I was just wondering who does come and see that at a knee level. Then I was told that in Copenhagen, there's a subject of segregation taught at the school level. And they are given toys of different waste with different colors. And there are different boxes which are kept. There are 6 of them. And the school children are taught as a game to mix this different types of materials and segregate at the school level. There's a picnic which happens at the waste to energy plant, and when you go there, this is at a knee level where nursery, KG standard students also see what is happening there, because that's the game which they are taught. Now from that sensitivity to what we come in our geography, and we try to understand an huge aspirant level where person wants to buy a new shirt. And as told in the morning, we talked about recirculation of clothes, when we're talking about only textile. And I was with the Flanders in Belgium to see how the circularity of textiles has been happening. And there are startups and there are industries just to collect the waste of cloth from different houses to bring them up and try to make it more usable again. Now something is a GDP per capita of 50,000 person throwing something and using it. Somebody who is GDP less than 3,000 trying to use it because it's a necessity. Now please try to understand where today India is and what are India's issues, growth, aspirant, and where circularity sits in Indian context versus somewhere where circularity sits in the European context. Now the scale is totally different. The volumes are different. When we are producing 0.5 kilograms, they are producing about 5 kilograms per day. So it's about 10 times more production happening because more waste happening. And when I went to Japan, the habits are totally different. You don't have dustbins or litter bins on any streets because you're supposed to carry yourself and dump it with segregation. Now, as you rightly asked, and I'm coming to a question with this background, that every stakeholder, every citizen, every person in the youth has to be a part of circularity awareness, education, sensitivity, then comes the measurement, then comes the index, then comes being competitively saying that you can come to my city for investment, etc., because we are happy, tick mark, we are green, good air quality, energy, and we are having circular economy within the city. So when cities try to compete with each other with cleanliness, circularity, sustainability, and people make the choices depending upon that. So if you have in-depth up to that level, I think your questions will be answered. We'll have a better society to work. And as my earlier speakers and the keynote speakers have told them, we have a very, very robust future, because with growth comes responsibility. With responsibility comes an opportunity, and I think we are in the right place of inflection now, where we are going to harness the opportunity in circularity with India leading, because as earlier speakers told, India is circular by its civilization over a period of time. They gave examples of how do we use material choices which goes back to the nature, earth, and can be recirculated. So something which is leading, we followed some paths and we started consuming more. But now we can start consuming wisely, recirculate it with education and institutions like you and the think tanks and the knowledge partners, what you said. I think we have a great future to go ahead. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I really would like to thank the panel for their opinions and views. And I'd like to announce this panel closed.
Thank you very much to these experts for their insights. And again, please speak with them over lunch. I next want to invite a very important guest on the stage to give the last address. But before I do that, I want to announce or make a practical announcement that several companies have signed up for B2Bs after lunch. If you still have not handed in that form, you can still do so. There are two persons in this room. One is Nitin from FICCI, if you can stand here. And the other one is Dharmesh from our embassy in Delhi. And they are the people who will then manage the B2Bs after lunch. So please pull them in the sleeve.